And now, let us go a bit deeper into the neuroscience of aesthetics and beauty. To lead us in this discussion, let's turn to Professor Anjan Chatterjee, one of the pioneers of this field.
Hi there. My name is Anjan Chatterjee. I'm a neurologist and a cognitive neuroscientist at the University of Pennsylvania in the School of Medicine. I also direct the center, the Penn Center for Neuroaesthetics. Just to give you a sense of what neuroaesthetics is, this is a relatively young field that probably has been around for about 20 years, and especially in the last 10 years. And what the field does is try to understand the nature of aesthetic experiences, the biologic basis of that, and how those experiences has an effect on us, our sense of well-being, and how we interact in the world. If we think about the nature of our environment, where most of us spend much of our time, in the materially developed world, people spend 90% of their time within the built environment. And this point, I think, was brought home, especially during the pandemic, when people found themselves working at home much more and not traveling and being confined to the same spaces. People started to realize how much their physical environment can have an impact on just their happiness, their sense of well-being, and how they work. One thing we have discovered is that there seems to be three principal dimensions, three principal components of our psychological responses to our built environment. And those we have described as being coherence as the first one. What coherence means is how organized and legible a space is. Does everything seem logical? Does it seem to be laid out well? Does everything have its own place? The second is a component that we call fascination. That is, how interesting is it? Is it complex? Does it make you feel like you want to explore the space? And the third one is something we refer to as hominess. What hominess means is, do you feel comfortable in this space? You can be in an absolutely gorgeous space. For example, there are some high-end hotels that you might be in, but it just doesn't feel homey. And so each of these three components seem to be important to our sense of well-being and how we work in those spaces. So first off, hominess is going to be important when you're trying to get something done. If you're not comfortable in the space, if you feel alienated, it's just not a recipe for being productive or being creative. When we think about fascination and coherence, there are two things to pay attention to, which is there are different stages of productivity and creativity. For example, there are times when you want your minds to be loose and to be wandering. And there are times when you want your minds to be focused so that you can really take whatever comes out of that mind wandering phase and actually make those insights or those thoughts concrete. So it might be the case that if you are in an environment that is fascinating, this loosens up our mind. It lets us explore the environment and lets us also explore our reactions to the environment. Whereas if you're in the stage where you actually have to get very specific and concrete about your output, you might want a space that is more coherent so that you're not distracted by the fascination of the environment. And so this speaks to the idea that there might be different spaces and different places in which different aspects of what you do tend to work better. I think it's worth your thinking through a little bit intentionally about the nature of your environment and the point of in your work of whether you're in more of a creative phase or you are in the phase of actually making real the creative insights that you might have. And so, again, what we find is that people have these responses to their environment and their brains respond to these factors in their environment without even knowing about it. So part of our job is to try to have you think about this explicitly and be a little more intentional about the spaces you occupy. Now, Dr. Platt also talked about some ways that you can disengage and from your actual work, and he gave the examples of meditation and taking a walk. I would add another example to that, which is looking at art. One of the things about really engaging with art and savoring art is it slows us down. It allows us to really focus on something that might be challenging, might be pleasurable, might be engaging in a way that could feel unexpected or just give us sheer pleasure. And those are the kinds of things that shake us out of our normal space. It is best done in a slow manner, so you spend some time in front of artwork and not rush from piece to piece. And that is one way, I think, in which you can expand how your mind is thinking, can slow yourself down, and that in all likelihood has benefits downstream to when you actually return to doing your own work. So to summarize, what I've said is that neuroaesthetics is trying to understand the biologic basis of aesthetic experiences and what impact that has both on our own sense of well-being and how we engage with the world. Pay attention to the environment in which you are working, that there might be some environments in which being focused is important. And in those environments, you want something, a surrounding that is more coherent. And there are times when you might want your mind to be wandering. And in those instances, surroundings that are fascinating would probably be advantageous. And then along similar lines, when you need to just step away from your work, I would recommend spending some time looking at art, and that this is another way to loosen the kind of rigidity of how we think by really engaging with art and letting yourself be both surprised or alarmed or challenged or just taken the sheer pleasure of art. Thank you.